All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to everyone joining us on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program, and it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. Shalom. You know, I took time out last night to look at a debate. I was listening on the debate, and the debate really was about, or I should say it was entitled, "Are All Bible Prophecies Fulfilled?" Now, I know that may raise some people's eyebrow and say, well, what do you mean are all Bible prophecies fulfilled? Well, the thing is, there is a school of thought that's out there, and it's called Preterism. And we're going to take a look at that. And so the title of this lesson is Preterism Examined and Refuted. Okay, it's not a very popular doctrine, but it is out there, and it is growing in popularity. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look through history, you know, where it came from, you know, what is the thought about preterism, because it was a very interesting debate, but it's one of those things that for the uninitiated, it could lead them astray. And they said, well, wait a minute, a couple of things from the preterist point of view actually make sense. And so they go further and further and further down a rabbit trail. But let's go ahead and look at the very foundation of it first before we get deeper and deeper and deeper when we examine their proof text. But we'll go to that in just a second. But let's look at a little bit of the history and where it came from. Now, I've taken the liberty to kind of look at a couple of things. You can go to Historicis, Wikipedia. You can go to a lot of different sites when you just type in, real simple, origins of preterism, okay? So this one I just got from, you know, Wikipedia, but I did look at a few other sites. They pretty much say the same thing. So there is some agreement in preterism as far as the origins of it. So let's look at it. Preterism. Preterism is a Christian eschatological view, okay, which interprets some partial preterism or all full preterism, because you have two schools there, and we'll get into that, and how they interpret prophecies, okay, either partial or full, okay. Now, one of the things we're going to deal with is really full, because that's one of the debaters. He is a full preterist. That means everything in the Bible has been fulfilled. I can see the hamster spinning in a lot of people's head right now, okay, but we're going to get into that a little bit, okay. All Bible you name it, to the full preterist, it is fulfilled. Yes, that thought that you're thinking right now, that too, they believe that is fulfilled. So it says, as prophecy of the events which have already happened, this school of thought interprets the book of Daniel as referring to events that happened in the 2nd century BC, while seeing the prophecies of Revelation as events that happened in the 1st century AD. Preterism holds that ancient Israel finds its continuation or fulfillment in the Christian church at the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. This is the pinnacle of what they believe, AD 70. The term preterism comes from the Latin praeter, which Webster's 1913 dictionary lists as a prefix denoting that something is past or beyond. In other words, preterism means past, okay? Adherents of preterism are commonly known as preterists. Preterism teaches that either all, full preterism, or a majority, partial preterism, of the Olivet Discourse had come to pass at AD 70, okay? Most people believe, well, preterists, I should say, they believe AD 70 was the culmination of everything that Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, has said at the Olivet Discourse. Okay, now let's see where it came from. Historically, preterists and non-preterists have generally agreed that the Jesuit Louis d'Alcazar, 1554, okay, born 1554 until 1613, okay, wrote the first systematic preterist exposition of prophecy, okay, during the Counter-Reformation. Let's look at a little bit of the history here, okay? So his name is Luis de Alcazar. I put that out there because you can just do your own research, do your own due diligence, and you'll see where it came from. So let's deal with it a little bit. Excuse me. The first systematic exposition of prophecy was written by Jesuit Louis de Alcazar during the Counter-Reformation. Moses Stewart noted that Alcazar's preterist interpretation was of considerable benefit to the Roman Catholic Church. I know a lot of Israelites already say, oh, all roads lead back to Rome. During its arguments with Protestants. See, this is a counter-argument to the Reformation that Protestants were doing. They say, wait, where are you going? All those prophecies have been fulfilled. At least that's what the attempt was. And preterism had been described in modern eschatological commentary as a Catholic defense against the Protestant historicist view, which identified the Roman Catholic Church as persecuting apostasy, okay, being, Antichrist, the great whore, the church, and stuff like that. So what the Roman Catholic Church wanted to do is say, all those things that passed, it couldn't have been us. We cannot be who the Bible is prophesying about. That's not us in Revelation. We're not going to have the Antichrist. We're not false prophet. We're not any of that stuff. See, because all that stuff has already passed. Now, I want you to understand something. Their biggest proof is Revelation and Matthew 24. And they said it culminated in 70 A.D. Okay? Now, remember, this view only came about in 1554. Okay, that's when he was born, so it was a little after that as well. But in the 1500s, this view came about. So that should at least give you have you ask the question, well, if this whole idea just started 15 centuries later, how did all the people before even have that thought? Then that couldn't have been their mindset if this ideology hadn't come around until 15 centuries later. Okay, but that kills it from there. Due to the resistance by Protestant historicists, the preterist view was slow to gain acceptance outside the Roman Catholic Church. Among Protestants, it was first accepted by Hugo Grotius, a Dutch Protestant eager to establish common ground between Protestants and the Roman Catholic Church. His first attempt to do this was entitled Commentary on Certain Texts Which Deal with Antichrist. That was in 1640. In which he attempted to argue that the texts relating to Antichrist had their fulfillment in the 1st century A.D. This was not well received by Protestants, but Grotius was undeterred, and his next work, Commentaries on the New Testament, 1641 to 1650, he expanded his preterist views to include the Olivet prophecy and Revelation. He expanded it. Preterism still struggled to gain credibility within her Protestant countries, especially England. The English commentator Thomas Hayne claimed that the prophecies of the book of Daniel had all been fulfilled by the 1st century, Christ's kingdoms on earth, 1645. And Joseph Hall expressed the same conclusion concerning Daniel's prophecies, the revelation unrevealed, 1650. But neither of them applied their preterist views to Revelation. However, the exposition of Grotius convinced the Englishman Henry Hanman. Hanman sympathized with Grotius' desire for unity among Christians and borrowing extensively from Grotius. In his introduction of Revelation, he claimed that others had independently arrived at similar conclusions as himself, though he gives pride of place to Grotius. Hammond was Grotius' only notable Protestant convert, and despite his reputation and influence, Grotius' interpretation of Revelation was overwhelmingly rejected by Protestants and gained no ground for at least 100 years. Really trying to push this doctrine. Now, if all the things have been fulfilled in the Bible in 70 AD, why would it be so hard to convince somebody, say, hey, we're in New Jerusalem. Hey, we're under a new heaven and a new earth right now. It wouldn't be that hard to convince someone. Can't you see that the lion and the lamb and the sheep and goats and all of them, their very nature is changed? And can't we see that all that has been fulfilled? Why would you have to convince someone of something so awe-inspiring, so just global? Peace has broken out all over the world. There is no more war if everything has been fulfilled, right? Why would you have to convince someone of that? So for 1,500 years, it wasn't accepted. It was rejected. But we'll continue, and then we'll get into some script. By the end of the 18th century, now we're in the 18th century, preterist exposition had gradually become more widespread. The first full preterist exposition was finally written in 1730 by the Protestant and Arian Frenchman Firmin, I do not know how to spell it, Abauzit, Abauzit, I don't know, who worked in the then independent Republic of Geneva as a librarian. This was part of a growing development of more systematic preterist expositions of Revelation. Now, this whole system, remember, you gotta, Okay, when you first come into the view, couple things sounds pretty good. Couple things sounds okay. But then when little inconvenient things start to happen, you got to fix it. It's that simple. You got to plug the holes in your doctrine. You got to take the puzzle piece, and if it doesn't fit, grab some scissors to make it work. Okay? Later, though, it appears that Al-Bawzit recanted this approach after a critical examination by his English translator, Dr. Twells, Twells. The earliest American full preterist work was The Second Advent of the Lord Jesus Christ, a Past Event, which was written in 1845 by Robert Townley. Townley later recanted this view. It's just not sticking. They're trying to get there. They're trying to get us there, and it's just not sticking. Remember, full preterist just means all the Bible has been fulfilled. All the prophecies have been fulfilled. All right, so I grabbed a little article, and I don't want to take the credit. So the article came from Charlie Campbell. Okay, now I'm just going to take some excerpts from his article, and then we'll proceed with the lessons. And this is something that he had said there. He said, Preterism is belief that the prophecies in Matthew 24, spoken of by Jesus on the Mount of Olives, and the book of Revelation were largely or completely fulfilled in the past, particularly in the events leading up to and surrounding the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in AD 70. Now, for those of you who may be new to Bible study, Matthew 24 in the book of Revelation has to do largely with the tumultuous events leading up to Christ's second coming to earth. Those who adhere to this view of Bible prophecy, known as preterism, refer to themselves as preterists. Why? The word preterist is based on the Latin word praeter, which means past. We've already went through that. Okay, and let's see. Preterists believe that many, if not all, of those things that most Christians would consider future events on the prophetic calendar are actually things of the past. According to the preterists, the tribulation, the Antichrist, the abomination of desolation, Jesus coming, Revelation 19, and Matthew 24 are all things of the past. That's what they believe. All these things are of the past. Many preterists believe that these things were fulfilled in the turmoil and political upheaval that ensued when Jerusalem was sacked by Rome and most of its inhabitants were slaughtered in AD 70. Now preterism is actually very similar to an unbiblical teaching that was making its round in early church. Now, there's something that was similar, wasn't the same thing, but some things that were similar. So we're going to go to 2 Timothy 2, and I want to start at verse 17. 2 Timothy 2, just something that's pretty similar that was going on. 2 Timothy 2, chapter 2, and let's start at verse 17. Just take a look at something real quick. All right, 17. Go ahead.
And their word will eat as doth a canker, of whom is
Hymenaeus and Philetus,
who concerning the truth have
erred,
saying that the resurrection is past already.
Mm-hmm.
And overthrow the faith of some.
And that's exactly what's going on right now. Okay? Now, these two gentlemen here that Paul is speaking of, they saying, hey, the resurrection has already passed. Okay? So don't even, Now, they were not talking about all events, but in this case, they're talking about, hey, the resurrection has already passed. Don't worry about it. Obviously, Paul said they are in error. Okay? It's not, that's not so. Okay? Don't believe that. Okay? So let's look at that. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians, which means we have to go back a couple of books. 2 Thessalonians 2. Okay, and when you get there, let's start at verse 1. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 1.
Now we beseech you,
Mm-hmm.
brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Let no man deceive you by any means,
Mm-hmm.
for that day shall not come,
Mm-hmm.
except there come a falling away first,
Mm-hmm.
and the man of sin be revealed,
Mm-hmm.
the son of perdition.
The son of perdition. Okay, no problem. No, we're going to keep going. See, so we know there's the two main camps of, preterism. which is partial and full. Most of them are full because when you go partial, then people kind of have to pick and choose, well, what's fulfilled and what's not, and this and that. So really, it's mainly full. But there are some people, even people today, there's some that are actual preterists. And you may not know it because they may not have came out and say it unless they have a book written about it or something. But a few people like Hank Hanegraaff has a radio show. I was kind of surprised. Now, he does not admit that he is a full preterist. But, a lot of his views are, a lot of these things have already happened. R.C. Sproul, Gary DeMar, Kenneth Gentry, just to name a few people who believe that, all these things have been fulfilled. Now, again, their proof text is usually Matthew 24 and Revelation 19. We're going to go to Matthew 24 and take a look at it. Okay, let's take a look. Now, we did this. If you've been following us for a while, we've covered Matthew 24, and we were talking about the end of days and opening up the seals, and Christ was talking about things, the same things that were contained in the seals in Revelation, right? So, we're going to take a look at that. Okay, now he said, Preterist says that Jesus came in an act of judgment against the Jews for their rejection of him as Messiah. Unlike full preterists, partial preterists do believe that there are some verses like Acts 1 and 9 through 11 that do require Jesus to come back in physical and visible manner. I couldn't agree more, okay, because of the language that is being used. But we're going to look at Matthew 24. And let's just read. We're going to look at a few things, pick out a few things, and this is what they believe has already, culminated in 70 A.D. So let's pick it up at verse 1. Matthew 24, verse 1. When you get there, go ahead and read.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another, that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? One. And what shall be the sign of thy coming? Two. And of the end of the world. Okay, now he asked 3 questions. We got to look at that, okay? Now he said, tell us when these things should be, okay? Talking about when Jerusalem get thrown down and all that. And he said, and then what will be the sign of your coming, okay? When will you come back? What will be the sign of you coming back? And then what would be the end of the age or the end of the world or consummation of the age? Now we know there's different ages, but we'll get to that. Okay, and the end of the age, these are separate questions. Let's see how he answers those questions. Go ahead. Verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
What else?
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet.
Yep, but the end is not yet. Go ahead.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes, in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And then shall the end come. Now, of course, they will reduce, world down to just the, geographical region of Jerusalem. How convenient. They said this gospel is going to go out to all the world. They're going to say, oh, well, there's Jerusalem. That was the only. We know that's not the only known world. We know that Israel, not Judah, but Israel is already scattered, by Assyrian captivity. So they were in a different world to begin with. We know that there's a whole country called Africa down there. There's people down there. Okay?
We know there's people, Rome taking over, and they came from, Europe. Right here, we're in the area of Jerusalem and stuff, so we know there are other people, and this gospel has to go out to other people, but they will reduce this to just the geographical location of Jerusalem. Continue. 15.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation,
Mhm.
spoken of by Daniel the prophet,
Mm-hmm.
stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Okay, now many people, they'll say, "Oh, well, that was Emperor Nero." Okay, but there's gonna be a problem with that. But that's what preterists would say. Okay, this abomination of desolation, the Antichrist, they would say that this is Nero. But continue.
Then let them which be in
Judea.
Judea flee into the mountains.
Okay.
Let him which is on the housetop not come down
Mm-hmm.
to take anything out of his house.
Mm-hmm.
Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes.
Okay.
And woe unto them that are with child,
Mm-hmm.
and to them that give suck in those days.
Okay.
But pray ye that our flight be not in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
neither on the Sabbath day.
Neither on the Sabbath day. Uh-huh.
For then shall it be a great tribulation,
Mm-hmm.
such as was not since the beginning of the world to
Mhm.
this time.
Now we know this cannot be, because the greater tribulation by this time had to be the flood. Wiped out everyone, right? Okay, so Jerusalem coming to ruin, that can't be the worst thing. It just can't be the worst thing. It happened to just Jerusalem and the people who were in Jerusalem. I'm not saying it's not bad. Of course it's bad. But that can't be the worst thing, except those, let's see, for great tribulation such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. That was the worst thing that was going to happen? Jerusalem getting... Okay, that's got to at least raise the question. It's got to at least beg the question. Go ahead, 22.
And except those days should be shortened,
Mm-hmm.
there should no flesh be saved.
Mm-hmm.
But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened.
Mm-hmm. Now, you saying, Robert, so are you saying Matthew 24 has nothing to do with AD 70? Absolutely not. I am not saying that. I'm saying it does have something to do with AD 70. Okay, but continue.
Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ,
Mm-hmm.
or there, believe it not.
Mm-hmm.
For there shall arise false Christ and false prophets,
Mhm.
and shall show great signs and wonders,
Mm-hmm.
insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
Mm-hmm.
Behold, I have told you before.
Mm-hmm.
Wherefore, if they shall say unto you,
Mhm.
Behold, he is in the desert,
Okay.
go not forth.
Okay.
Behold, he is in the secret chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it not.
Mm-hmm. But okay, let me ask you guys this. 70 AD is in recorded history, is it not? We can go find stuff on 70 AD. We can get the books on it and stuff, and we can see that it is actually in recorded history. We can see that, okay? There's no problem with that. That's okay. But let's see. But one thing we can't find in recorded history is verse 27. Read that.
For as the lightning cometh out of the east,
Mhm.
and shineth even unto the west,
Mm-hmm.
so shall also the coming of the Son man be.
Go ahead.
For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days,
Mm-hmm.
shall the sun be darkened,
Mm-hmm.
and the moon shall not give her light,
Mm-hmm.
and the stars shall fall from heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Okay. Now we understand that there's some apocalyptic language there. We get that. But this is not recorded. Okay, in the fall of Jerusalem, this is not recorded in history. Now, I understand, again, this apocalyptic language is saying that a particular government or a particular state is going to fall. Darkness, gloominess. Okay, the end of a particular government, in this case, Jerusalem. I get that. All right, but we don't see any of these things now, because some people say, well, it's just symbolic. But you'll notice with the preterists, that's going to be a trend. If we can see it in recorded history or something, okay, well, yeah, that's literal. But if something sounds literal, but we don't have any proof of it, oh, well, that's symbolic. That's not proper hermeneutics. Let's continue a little bit more, and we'll move on. Go ahead.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn.
Mm-hmm.
And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
And then shall gather together his elect from the four winds,
Uh-huh.
from one end of heaven to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Now learn a parable of the fig tree,
Mm-hmm.
when his branch is yet tender,
Okay.
and putteth forth his leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near,
Mm-hmm.
even at the doors.
Mm-hmm.
Verily I say unto you, this generation shall
Mm-hmm.
not pass,
Mm-hmm.
till all these things be fulfilled.
Okay, stop right there. So, and the kicker of it all, how they get recruits into the preterist view, is verse 34. Because they say, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. That's their ultimate proof text, and that's how they get people. They say, okay, see, he was talking to the people right in front of them. But let's go through that a little bit, okay? Now, the proof test is Matthew 24:34, and it's, surely I say unto you, this generation will by no means pass away, depending on the version that you have, till all these things take place, okay? So they said that generation, the generation that was alive at his time, okay, would by no means pass away until these things take place. Abomination and desolation, great tribulation, coming of the Son of Man. Therefore, these things must have taken place. Jesus must have come back, or he would be a false prophet. That's their view. He said, he told them right then and there. He told them that it was going to happen right then and there. But let's see if is that really what it meant. Okay. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so it says here, had to occur. They said that the tribulation events spoken of in Revelation, his second coming, they had to have occurred before the generation of people living at the time of Jesus died off. Well, I disagree with that, obviously. Okay, it says, then what generation was Jesus talking about in Matthew 24:34? He was talking about the generation that would see it. Some of them saw, some of them didn't. Some of them died before 70 AD. He was talking around 30 AD, so some 40 years later or whatever. So did he lie to them because some of them died before 70 AD? Well, no. Did they see some of these things? Yeah, they saw some of them. They saw some of these things, but what he was talking about, because what we have to understand is 70 AD was the beginning of the end. They saw the beginning of the end. They saw the end of the Jewish state. They saw the end of Israel, at least Judah. Okay, Judah, Benjamin, a little bit of Levi. End. That's it. The final scattering is what they saw, is what they witnessed. No more Jerusalem, no more temple. Done. It's over. See, they even thought, they didn't even understand that final scattering. Go to Acts 1, and I'll show you real quick. Go to Acts 1 real quick. Let's look at that real quick. Acts 1. Okay, and I'm going to look at it about, is it verse 6 I'm looking for? Okay, right here. Okay. Yeah, verse 6. Go to verse 6.
Acts 1 verse 6.
Uh-huh.
When they therefore were come together,
Mm-hmm.
they asked him, saying, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom of Israel?
See? So that's what they were looking for. They're looking for, hey, will you restore the king? Because, it was already under Roman occupation. All right, so they said at this time, okay, this is at his time, will you restore? How did he respond in verse 7?
And he said unto them,
Mm-hmm.
It is not for you to know the times or the seasons,
Mm-hmm.
which the Father hath put in his own power.
Okay, so he just basically said, you know what? Don't worry about that. It's not for you to know the time or the season. Okay? He didn't even give them a thought of, well, it's going to happen in 70 AD. So, he just said, you don't know. It's not for you to know the time or the season right now. So he didn't give, there's no him misleading the apostles or misleading anyone. Okay, he has a far-reaching plan. See, those who lock in on 70 AD and 70 AD only, they miss out on a secondary application. The problem is, if we read these things and all things have been fulfilled in 70 AD, then they ignore a secondary application, meaning that we have no business even reading the Bible now. We missed it. We missed the boat. Everything happened. It's over. It doesn't apply to us. If it has no secondary application, it doesn't apply to us. That's exactly what it means. When Jesus was talking, when Yeshua was talking, he was talking to the people in his time. That's it. Was talking to nobody later. That's the implication. Nobody else he's talking to. No secondary application whatsoever. So I submit to you, brothers and sisters, that it is a far-reaching plan to where it extends to us until it's all over, until there be no more heaven, no more earth, till he shows back up. Now, I know they say, oh, well, he's not coming in the cloud. Again, that's just symbolic. He's not really coming. And brothers and sisters, you're starting to see why this view has been rejected for a long time, why it has so much pushback. Okay? Dare I say it's heretical. But let's take a look at it, because guess what? That's not enough for us to just say, oh, well, don't believe it. No, let's dig into it. Let's look at it, because some people will be swept away from this doctrine, the doctrine of preterism, that everything is fulfilled. So we're going to deal with it some more. Now, we already looked at, Matthew 24. Okay, some things, yes, was absolutely fulfilled or started in 70 AD. Yes, I am agreeing with that. But we're going to go ahead and look at some more stuff here. Okay, Jesus said in Matthew 10 and 23, if you care to go over there, let's take a look. Matthew 10 and 23. Okay, 10 and 23. Let's take a look at it. Okay, when you get there, go ahead and read.
But when they persecute you in this city, flee into another. For verily I say unto you, ye shall not have gone over the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come.
Okay, so they said, now they went out to preach and everything, and he said that you will not go all to the cities of Israel until the Son of Man be come, until he comes back. Well, we know they went everywhere they could trying to preach, the gospel. And when he came back, you look at Acts 10 and everything. When he came back, they thought, okay, will you at this time restore? I mean, is it time? Nope, still not time. Still not quite time. So you got a lot of work to do. And basically, this whole gospel has to go out to the whole world. First, starting at Jerusalem, right? Okay, so that's what has to happen there. Okay, now he said, now preterists, they say, see, Jesus promised that he would come again before his disciples would finish evangelizing in the city of Israel. So he must have come in the first century. Okay, is that what is meant? Okay, now let's look carefully. Okay, say, when they persecute in the city and flee into another, for surely I say unto you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Now, there are a few different views regarding what Jesus may have meant here, but let's take a look at it on the interpretation so we don't be, too dogmatic. It says, I believe that Jesus was simply telling his disciples that there was so much work to be done, so many cities to reach with the gospel, that they could not finish taking the gospel to their own country before his second coming. And if we're right, that is what he meant. Jesus predicted predictions certainly came to pass. The disciples never did complete taking the gospel to all of the cities of Jerusalem because they were persecuted. Okay, they didn't finish. All right, we know that they were persecuted. So they want to go into things like, you know what? We'll get to that. I don't want to jump ahead. We'll get to that. Now, another problem is they have in the book of Revelation a couple things. Because what you'll notice when you get to study preterism, because I know a lot of you guys are, you're like Bereans and you want to go and look. Good on you. But one of the other things that they want to do is revelation, because they want to look at the language of, quickly. So let's go to the book of Revelation, okay? And they use a lot of time statements, okay? And they're implying imminence, okay? That's what they're implying, imminence. So let's take a look at it. Revelation 1 and 1. Let's look at that first sentence, and then we'll jump around a little bit. Go ahead. Revelation 1 and 1.
The revelation of Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
which God gave unto him,
Mm-hmm.
to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John.
Okay, stop there. Now let's go to Revelation 2:16. Chapter 2:16.
Repent,
Mm-hmm.
or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth.
Okay, let's do Revelation chapter 11 and 14. Let's take a look, because it's only fair that we look at the text that they use. It's only fair that we do that. So Revelation 11 and 14. Chapter 11 and verse 14.
The second woe is past.
Mhm.
And behold, the third woe cometh quickly.
Okay, and the second, it comes quickly. Okay, let's do Revelation chapter 22 and verse 12. I know we're moving quickly, but I'm just making a point here. Go ahead.
And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me.
Okay, so there we go. Now, obviously the predator is going to say, see, it's quickly. And that's imminence. That's soon. Okay? Let's see if that really what it means. How could he have in mind 2,000 years later and counting? How could Christ have that in mind? That's not very quick. Okay? The event spoke about in Revelation had to have been fulfilled quickly. Okay? Let's take a look at it. Now, the Greek word translated shortly or quickly in the passages of Revelation, okay, is the Greek word tachus or tachus, T-A-C-H-U-S. Okay, let's look at what it means. Okay, this word does not refer to a soon event, but a swift event. There's a difference. The Arndt and Gingrich Greek English Lexicon of the New Testament, page 814, says this word means quick, swift, or speedy, not soon. Thayer's Greek English Lexicon of the New Testament, page 616, agrees, saying that the word tachu means quickly or speedily. Vine's expository dictionary of the New Testament words on page 913 also agrees, saying that this word means swift, quick, or quickly. Jesus was not describing when the event will occur, but rather the manner in which they will take place when they do occur. He was saying that these events, that when these events take place, they're going to unfold suddenly, quickly, with great swiftness. It come like a thief in the night, stuff like that, suddenly. That's what he was describing. Suddenly. You're not ready for it. Kind of like when the flood happened. Suddenly. Kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah. Suddenly. Then sudden destruction. That's when it's going to happen. And when it happens quick. See, Sodom and Gomorrah happened so fast to where nobody could escape except Lot and his family when it started raining down. Suddenly. That's what we're talking about. Suddenly. So all these time statements we're dealing with. So we're dealing with one part right there. We'll deal with another one in a second. Another reason to reject it is that none of the church fathers mentions Christ's second coming has already occurred. None of those church fathers. Now, I know we're Israelites. I know that. We don't put a whole lot of stock in church fathers. But preterists, they do believe in church fathers. So we might as well use their church fathers against them. Okay? So you can say, no, this is what your church father said. Right? This is what you said. This is what you guys believe. Okay, so let's look at it. See, what I'm saying is that they didn't have this mindset in the first, second, third, fourth, all the way up 15 centuries. They didn't have this mindset that everything is all fulfilled. Everything has already happened. Let's take a look at it. By church fathers, I'm referring to those leaders in the church of the first 3 centuries AD following the original disciples. Okay? You got Justin Martyr, Eusebius, Tertullian, Polycarp. These are the ones right after the disciples, okay? John being the last disciple, okay? So that's what we're talking about. Many people don't realize this, but many of their writings survive to this day. You can go to Amazon, you can buy an encyclopedia-sized set, The Writings of the Church Fathers, 38 volumes, and see with your own eyes what they had to say on a wealth of theological issues. As far as the Church Fathers and Preterism are concerned, there is zero indication that from known writings of the Church Fathers that anyone understood the New Testament prophecies from a preterist perspective, meaning none of them believed it. So when they go, Polycarp, and they go Tertullian, none of these early church fathers, okay, and you're talking about people who were either discipled by John, or you're talking about a student who was discipled by a person who was discipled by John. 1, 2 people removed from the last surviving apostle. Really close to the situation, wouldn't you agree? Really close to the situation. They did not believe everything has passed. Everything passed. They didn't believe that. They did not think that. There are no early church writings that teach that Jesus returned physically or spiritually in the first century. None. If we, as God's people, are supposed to understand the prophecies of the New Testament according to the preterist view, you would think God would have left at least one written record of this. The idea that Jesus came back in AD 70 was a foreign idea during the first 5 centuries of the church, and then only mentioned sporadically after that until about 400 years ago. Okay, that puts you about 16th century, right? Okay. Norman Geisler points out that it wasn't until early 17th century when preterist thinking was applied by the Jesuit Catholic scholar Luis de Alcazar, whom we read earlier in this teaching, that it was given very serious consideration. So that's one of the reasons why you should reject preterism right there. 2, none of the church fathers mention Christ's second coming has already occurred. Now, another reason. The Christians alive during 70 AD, as well as the church fathers, believed the second coming was a future event. Okay? In other words, not only did the early church not refer to the second coming as a past event, that's got to be interesting. If you did your due diligence, you go do your homework, and you start kind of just reading what they're saying, nobody referred to his second coming as a past event. If it was, wouldn't it benefit us that somebody would say, yeah, that already happened? Somebody. One? Anybody. Okay, so in other words, not only did the early church not refer to the second coming as a past event, over and over they referred to it as a future event. The oldest extra-biblical Christian document known to exist is a document called the Didache. Okay? It is a simple collection of early church doctrine. Most scholars believe it was written near the close of the first century, most likely around AD 80. It was used and cited by many of the church fathers as well as by the Christian historian Eusebius. Okay? Church history. So its early existence is well documented. The full text of the Didache has been lost for centuries. Amazingly, it was rediscovered in Constantinople in 1873. The interesting thing that this document proves is that those who lived through the events of 70 AD regarding the events spoken of in Matthew 24 and 25 as yet to be fulfilled prophecy. This early church document mentions the Antichrist, the Great Tribulation, and the second coming of Christ as an events that were yet to come. So even these doctrines, these extra biblical, outside the Bible, of these early church fathers, their writings, they still refer to all this stuff as yet to come, written after 70 AD. But the preterists want you to believe 15 centuries later, they got it all figured out. See, it already happened. It's your choice, brothers and sisters. The early church document mentioned the Antichrist, the Great Tribulation, the second coming of Christ as events yet to come. So the Didache is a good piece of evidence for the very believers who lived through the events surrounding AD 70 that the preterist view is incorrect. In addition to the Didache, early church fathers like Papias, Clement of Rome, Ignatius, Polycarp, and Justin Martyr wrote of a future second coming. These people are really close to the situation, okay? I'm giving their credibility to those who follow the church fathers. So believe what your church fathers say. That's what they say. So the guys who's right there in the 1st and 2nd century and the 3rd century, they got it wrong. But Alcazar, 15 centuries later, he got it right. That's what you have to believe. Okay? Who would know better as to whether Jesus came back in AD 70? Those who were alive in AD 70 and the years immediately following, or modern day preterists writing 2,000 years later or 1,500, 1,600 years later? Who's going to know better? Okay, the Christians alive during AD 70, as well as the church fathers, believe the second coming was a future event. Okay? What they do is they get caught up on, again, these time statements. Time, that was a time. What will be the end of the age? It was the end of that age. But I got to give you something. I got to give you guys something. Go to Luke 18. I got to give you guys something. Okay? We got to get into the Bible. Let's get some scripture. Let me give you something. Because this part, see, these are the scriptures that preterists ignore. So I have to equip you with something. Okay? All these lessons are meant to be didactic in nature. So I gotta equip you with something. Luke 18, chapter 18. Okay, are you there, son?
Yep.
Luke 18, go to verse 28. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Then Peter said, Lo, we have left all, and followed thee. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house, or parents, or brethren, or wife, or children, for the kingdom of God's sake, who shall not receive manifold more in this present time, and in the world to come life everlasting.
In the world to come. They don't talk about that. What should be the end of the world or the end of the age? But it sounds like there's a world coming after that. There's going to be a time after that. We're not done. We're not done. Go to Luke 20. Go to chapter 20. Let's look at this. Go to Luke 20. I want you to start that at verse 27. See, these are scriptures that are normally ignored. Now, a preterist is going to look at the video and then go study these scriptures that we get and come up with something, you know. They'll come up with something, but that's what they have to do. You have to get the scissors out for your puzzle piece, make it fit. Okay? Luke 20 and 27. Go ahead. What happened?
Then came to him certain of the
Sadducees,
which deny that there is any resurrection. They asked him,
right?
Saying, Master, Moses wrote unto us, if any man's brother die, having a wife, and he die without children, that his brother should take his wife and raise up seed unto his brother.
Now we're just talking about the Levirate law. You know, if a brother dies and he doesn't have any children, then his brother, the living brother, has to marry his wife so he can, you know, have children in Israel and stuff. This is a Levirate law, but I want to pull something else out of it. Go ahead.
There were therefore 7 brethren, and the first took a wife and died without children.
Yep.
And the second took her to wife, and he died childless.
She still hadn't had any kids. Go ahead.
And the third took her, and in like manner the 7 also. And they left no children and died. Last of all, the woman died also.
Okay.
Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of them is she? For 7 and her to wife. And Jesus answering said unto them, the children of this world marry, and are given in marriage.
Catch that, guys. Everything has been fulfilled. He said the children of this world marry and are given into marriage. But if everything is fulfilled, okay. But you know what? Go 35 before I go forward. Read 35.
But they which be accounted worthy to obtain that world, as the resurrection from the dead, neither marry, nor are given in marriage.
Everything has been fulfilled. Are we still getting married and giving in marriage right now? We're still doing that? But your Messiah said that in the next world, after the resurrection, you won't be married or given in marriage. 2 different ages now. Aren't we talking about 2 different ages? So I'm just talking about common sense right here. That's all I'm talking about. It's all been fulfilled, but yet we are still married and given in marriage. Continue, 36.
Neither can they die anymore.
Neither can we die? And yet this has all been fulfilled? Really? You can adopt a preterist view that everything has been fulfilled. Oh, I know. This is spiritual. So Messiah's talking about something spiritual right now. Although marriage is real, and given in marriage, consummated in marriage, that's real. Dying is real. Okay? But immortality is spiritual. Neither can they die anymore. Go ahead.
For they are equal unto the angels, and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection.
Being the children of the resurrection. Now go ahead.
Now that the dead are raised.
That's spiritual.
Raised.
Now that the dead are raised. Okay, go ahead.
Even Moses showed at the bush when he calleth the Lord of God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Okay.
For he is not a God of the dead, but of the living, for all live unto him.
Because all live unto him. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Now, what they'll do, we'll see, the pattern that I noticed in the debate last night was that when something was literal, but he could not prove it, one of the debaters, he made it spiritual. He made it symbolic. But if it's in recorded history, oh, well, yeah, that's literal. See, that happened. But nothing can be future. So if something seems literal and future, it's symbolic. That's it. It's symbolic. But what is what the Messiah is saying right here? He's talking about a resurrection. He's talking about a different age. He's talking about marriage, which we do understand what that is. We know what giving in marriage is. We understand what that is. We know what dying is. So the opposite, resurrection, being raised from the dead, resurrection, to erect, to stand up, to come alive. So that's what they want to do. But let's go to 2 Timothy, and I want to read something real quick. We're not done. A little bit more. Because that's what you're going to notice in the arguments is that, well, if it can't be proven, hands down, it happens every time. If it can't be seen, it's symbolic. It can't be future, because we're in the future now. It can't be future. Okay, that's out the window. Because it's all fulfilled now. If you don't see it, it's spiritual. It's symbolic. It's apocalyptic language. That's it. But other than that, we're in a new heaven. We're in a new earth. We're in Jerusalem. We have access to the tree of life. God said the temple is in us. The kingdom is inside of us. It's inside of us right now. We have all that right now, according to the preterists. According to the preterists. 2 Timothy 2. Let's pick it up at 16.
But shun profane and vain
babblings.
For they will increase unto more ungodliness. And their word will eat as doth a canker. Of whom is Hymenaeus and Philetus, who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrow the faith of some.
And now I wanted to read that because that's exactly what's going on right now. Your faith is going to be overthrown. Think about that. I want you to consider that as you go to Ephesians 2. I want you to consider that your faith can be overthrown. Now here you are, silly enough to believe that one day all your suffering is going to end because you believe in your Messiah and you try to get back in a covenant with him. Silly you. And you try to observe his feast days as best as you can, observe his law, statutes, and commandments, and believe on the only begotten Son, the Messiah. That one day, according to Scripture, his kingdom will come. Thy kingdom come, that whole thing. That there will be a resurrection of the dead. that there will be a millennial reign, that his feet will stand on a Mount of Olives, that he will reign in Jerusalem. But your preterists are saying all that has happened. It's done. It's over. It all happened already. It's over. Now, if you consider that just for a second, doesn't that tweak at your faith just a little bit? You're like, wait a minute. Why am I believing all these grandiose claims that the Bible is reading, and it already happened? Some people will turn from the faith because if they actually believe that, they're going to be like, well, what's the use? This is it. This is heaven. This is the new earth. This is it. I still get old. I still get sick. My body snap, crackles, and pop when I get up in the morning. This is it. What happened to that resurrection? Another question you might want to ask yourself, if there is a resurrection, where is everybody? Where's Job? Where's David? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They were promised all this stuff. Where are they? You at least know that Abraham was promised something, right? Land, whole lot of children. You know, like the sand of the sea, stars in the heavens and stuff. A lot of kids. But didn't see that many. Did God break his promise to Abraham? Said he's going to inherit land, a lot of descendants. He didn't see all of them. Overthrow your faith, brothers and sisters. Ephesians 2. And let's pick it up at verse 5. Okay? Verse 5. Let's look at it.
Even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Christ. By grace ye are saved, and hath raised us up together, and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace.
Did y'all catch that in verse 7? In the ages to come, there's an age coming. Did you catch that? Read verse 7 again for me.
In the ages to come, he might show the exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us through Christ Jesus.
Okay, so at the end of the age. So when the apostles were talking about, you know, the end of the world, end of the age, stuff like that, end of that age right there. But there was an age to come. So now there is a secondary application because there's an age to come since Christ talked about the age after that. And since there hasn't been a massive resurrection, we're not at the final age yet, then, are we? As I said before, I submit to you that 70 AD was the end of the Jewish age, the Israelite age, being one nation. It's the end of that. And it is an unfolding of the rest of God's plan. Seals, you know, things like that. Trumpets are coming up, all that stuff. It's coming. It's an unfolding. Finally put Israel away. Final scattering. And now we're into a different age. An age where Israel is no longer one unified nation and no longer with the temple, no longer in their land. Does at least that make sense? It's the end of that age, right? At least that makes sense. We're going to continue. Okay, so Hebrews, let's look at Hebrews. We want that to at least make sense. Hebrews 6. Okay, so let's take a look at something. All right, let's go Hebrews 6 and pick it up at verse 3. Okay, pick it up at verse 3. I want to look at something real quick. Pick it up at verse 3. Go ahead.
And this will we do, if God permit. For it is impossible for those who were once enlightened
Mm-hmm.
and have tasted of the heavenly gift,
Yep.
and were made partakers of the Holy Ghost,
And what else?
and have tasted the good word of God,
Mm-hmm.
and the powers of the world to come.
The world to come. So there is something that comes after the age that is prophesied in Matthew 24. Something comes after. World to come. That is what I wanted to point out. Let's go to another case of it. Okay, now, another case against preterism. A strong case can be made that the book of Revelation was written in approximately AD 95, long after the events of AD 70. They don't like that one at all. Remember how it was rejected, then you have to get a systematic approach to preterism and stuff because a lot of inconvenient things popped up. The dating of Revelation is really inconvenient. It does not support their beliefs. See, they go down this trail and say, okay, we got to fight the Protestant Reformation. No. Everything has been fulfilled. Then somebody probably called them on it. Yeah, but if it was all fulfilled in 70 AD, we got John on the Isle of Patmos and he hadn't written Revelation just yet. Oh, yeah. I'll get back to you on that. And so they have to rewrite history or discredit. No. It was written before that. Let's take a look. This poses a big problem for the preteristic view. Preterists believe that the book of Revelation was a prophecy written by the Apostle John describing the events that would shortly come upon Jerusalem and the Jewish people as their city would be destroyed by the Romans. For the preterist view to work, the book of Revelation has to have been written prior to 70 A.D. Doesn't that make sense? It would have to. For it to work, it would have to. But it's been widely accepted. Nobody argued about it. They didn't have to hold councils and debates or anything to say, oh, yeah, it was about 95. They come within 1 year. They say, 90, some say 95, some say 96. That's it, when it was written. That's it. That's the argument. But let's continue. But there is compelling evidence in the writings of the church fathers that the book of Revelation was written approximately 25 years after the events surrounding the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. For example, consider Irenaeus. Now, when you go and you listen from the preteristic view, they're going to discredit. I'll tell you that right now. Because they have to. They can't accept it because it would make their doctrine wrong. Because they have to. Okay? But Irenaeus, he lived AD 120 to 202. Okay? Now, he was the bishop of the city of Lyon in modern-day France. He grew up in Smyrna, one of the cities where the book of Revelation was first circulated, Revelation 2 and 8. He was a disciple of Polycarp, who was a disciple of the Apostle John. He's one person removed. One person removed from the Apostle John. But he's not credible. But a guy 15, 16 centuries later, he's more credible. That's what you have to believe. You have to accept that. But let's continue, okay? Who was the disciple of John, the author of Revelation? So, you got to get this in your mind. Polycarp was a disciple of the Apostle John, the author of the book of Revelation, and Irenaeus was a disciple of Polycarp. If anyone knew when the book of Revelation was penned, it would have been Polycarp or Irenaeus. Here's what Irenaeus wrote. He wrote in his title. It's called Against Heresies, okay? He tells us when John had his apocalyptic vision. This is what he says. Of course, remember, a preterist is throwing this all out. Even a preterist who may be looking at this video right now, he's Irenaeus, he was wrong. He was wrong. He was mistaken on so many things. So they're dismissing it already, okay? So I'm just letting you know now, when you bring the information to them, they're going to dismiss it outright, okay? So this is what Polycarp wrote. He said, "We will not, however, incur the risk of pronouncing positively as to the name of the Antichrist." Interesting. To the name of the Antichrist. For if it were necessary that his name should be distinctly revealed in this present time, it would have been announced by him, Apostle John, who beheld the apocalyptic vision. Now hold on, okay? Let's look at this. Now that's interesting. Note that Irenaeus, AD 120 to 202, believed that the Antichrist had still not been revealed. That's first thing you got to realize right there. Forget about what he wrote. Understand when he lived. For him to even write that down, he lived in 120, well after 70 AD. For him to even not even think that the Antichrist is not even revealed, you can stop right there. You can stop right there. For him to not even think that he's been revealed. Okay, so let's look at it. Okay. Had not been revealed. Well, that throws a wrench in the preterist viewpoint. Why? Preterists, including Hank Hanegraaff, believed that the first century Caesar or Nero was the Antichrist. Now, that's not what Irenaeus thought. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But let's continue with Irenaeus' quotes. Okay, let's see what else he did. For that was seen not very long time since, but almost in our day, towards the end of Domitian's reign. That's very important. That's really important, Domitian's reign. Really important, because you can go look and see, when did Domitian reign? Because Domitian is the one who exiled John the Baptist, John the Revelator. He's the one who exiled him. And exiling people was his common punishment, not Nero. That wasn't his common punishment. Kind of important information, don't you think? Kind of important to know. Let's continue. Okay, so first century of Nero's the Antichrist. That's not what Irenaeus thought. Well, we'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay, but let's continue with that. All right. Irenaeus says that John had his apocalyptic vision, the thing he writes about in Revelation, towards the end of Domitian's reign. Who's Domitian? Domitian was a Roman emperor near the end of the first century. Here's what is so fascinating about Irenaeus' statement. Domitian's reign did not even begin until AD 81, or 81 AD. His reign ended with his assassination on September of 96 AD. Irenaeus places the date of the authorship of the book of Revelation sometime around AD 95, towards the end of Domitian's reign, long after the events of 70 AD and the destruction of Jerusalem. This statement by Irenaeus is devastating to the preterist position. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, that's pretty devastating right there. But let's suppose that, for preterist sake, that Irenaeus was a sloppy historian and that the book of Revelation was written near the beginning of Domitian's reign, which is 81. This still placed its writing after the destruction of Jerusalem. One thing they can't argue with was John was exiled during Domitian's reign. Didn't even start to 81. So even if you take off some years, it doesn't fit. It's not enough. Not enough. And if the book of Revelation was written any time after the destruction of Jerusalem, it cannot be a collection of prophecies about events that found their fulfillment before and in AD 70, as preterists claim. Okay? And he said, and okay, now the preterists, they might think, well, you know, you're going to base your date on authorship of Revelation on the writings of one person. Okay, let's look at some other people, because they're going to try to take that one away from you if you just have one. Okay, let's use a little bit more. Clement of Alexander, who lived from about AD 150 to 215, also testifies to a post AD 70 date for the writings of the book of Revelation. He mentioned that John was exiled to the Isle of Patmos until after the death of the tyrant, another reference to Domitian, who died in 96 AD. Clement of Rome. This is their own, see, they're getting cut by their own church fathers. That's the problem. By their own church fathers, they're having trouble. Okay? Now, we're going to pick this up, and you know what? Let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and finish it out. That's Clement of Alexander, okay? He mentioned it about the tyrant. Another source from a post-AD completion date for the book of Revelation is Victorinus. Victorinus was an early church bishop who suffered martyrdom around AD 304. He said in his commentary of the book of Revelation that John had his vision of the apocalypse while he was in the island of Patmos, condemned by the mines by Caesar Domitian. So again, he's saying John was exiled by Domitian. Okay? Eusebius lived in AD 260 to 340. He is known as the father of church history due to his classic work in ecclesiastical history. Several times in his writing, he also dates the book of Revelation to the reign of Domitian. Again, and again. Jerome, the one who translated the scriptures into Latin, the Vulgate, lived from 340 to 419. He states clearly in two places that John was banished under Domitian, and that is when the book of Revelation was written. These statements from some of the greatest, quote, some of the greatest, most reliable names in early church history built a compelling case that the book of Revelation was written many years after AD 70 and the events surrounding the destruction of Jerusalem. And if these men were telling us the truth about this matter, the whole preteristic view goes up in smoke. I agree. The whole thing goes up in flames. So, we're going to continue with some more reasons why the preteristic view has a lot of trouble. The full preteristic view cannot be true. Join me for part 2 of this refutation of full preterism. Until next time, search the scriptures and prove all things. All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining us on this program. As always, we're the Fountain of Israel Bible Studies program, and it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. This is part 2 of our look at preterism. Preterism examined and refuted. Okay, we left off with the dating of the book of Revelation, which proved to be very, very inconvenient for those who believe in the preterist view. Okay, so we're going to continue with that. We're dealt with the dating of it, but now we're going to look at the book. We're going to look inside the book of Revelation. So join me there for the book of Revelation. One of the other reasons to reject it is that the tribulation events in the book of Revelation are too global and cataclysmic to be attributed to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. It's another reason to just reject preterism. The reason I'm teaching on this, brothers and sisters, sons of Jacob, daughters of Zion, is because it is heretical. This could cut off people's faith. Could you even imagine if everything has already passed and there is no secondary application to the Bible, meaning it has nothing to do with us today because everything has passed, everything has been fulfilled, then why do we read the Bible? Why do we try our best to obey? And even for the Christians who believe in Jesus Christ, then why have faith in Jesus Christ? It has all passed. That's why it is damaging to our faith. It does threaten our salvation. Because if you're running around under the illusion, oh, I'm saved, we're under the new heaven and the new earth and everything's great, I can do what I want. Because another thing, prophecy says that the Messiah is going to put an end to sin. So we're not sinning anymore? There's no more sin in the world? In Revelation, it says the last enemy is death. Death and hell goes into the lake of fire. Satan is defeated. Look at all the things you have to believe. And you can't trust your lying eyes. You can't trust that. You just believe it's all fulfilled. It's all done. A damnable heresy, brothers and sisters, will cause you to give up your faith. Will cause you to depart because it's already done. Let's continue. Okay, the book of Revelation tells us that the coming tribulation, when God's wrath is poured out upon a God-rejecting world, a lawless world, the earth will experience 3 waves of judgments, which each wave containing 7 judgments. The book of Revelation tells us about the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls or vial judgments. Okay? which is some of which, you know, Christ had talked, he spoke about. Let's go to Revelation 8. Let's read a little bit of that. Revelation 8. Now let's start at verse 1. Revelation 8, verse 1.
And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth. And there were voices, and thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake. And the seven angels, which had the seven trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail. There followed hail and fire, mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up.
Wait. When was the third part of all the trees on the earth burned up in history? Where can we read that? Oh, okay. Go ahead. That's going to be a running theme. Oh, it's spiritual. If you can't find it in history, if you can't prove it, it's spiritual. Yeah. So that's their hermeneutic. That's their exegesis of scripture right there. If I can't prove it, if I can't find it in history where all this has happened, it's spiritual. Go ahead. Verse 8.
And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire, it was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood.
When did that happen? Oh, I'm sorry. It's symbolic. That's spiritual. Go ahead.
And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. Third part of creatures in the sea died. Third part of the ships were destroyed. In 70 A.D.? Go ahead. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. Now,
we would call it like a meteor or a comet or something like that, an asteroid or something to that nature is what we would say. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. Go ahead.
And it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star was called Wormwood.
Wormwood.
And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter.
In 70 A.D. Go ahead.
And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld, and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound.
Three more angels yet to sound. All these things happened. Third part of this dying, third part of that dying, and all that happened in 70 A.D. But if it didn't happen, it was spiritual. Okay? This is just remember that. That's all you got to do. If it didn't happen, it was spiritual. If you can't prove it or have any kind of documentation whatsoever, some evidence whatsoever, then it was spiritual. Because they had to come up with an answer for those who might say, well, if all these awe-inspiring, breathtaking, horrific events happened and they were visual, wouldn't one person write it down? If it happened in 70 AD, obviously people survived coming out of 70 AD. Some people survived. Wouldn't somebody write it down? But since you don't have that, then it's spiritual. But someone asked a question before. They said, well, if all these things are spiritual, then how do you know it really happened? That's the good question. How do you know? Who determined, yeah, hey, that happened? How do you know? So we're just supposed to believe someone when it's just all spiritual. Just believe them. The Bible tells us to test the spirits, right? So how do we know it actually happens? Everything's all spiritual. But Bible also talks about things or uses language that says that people won't have to tell you. We'll all know when that day comes. Kind of gives us that impression, right? But all these things, spiritual. That's what you have to do. Spiritual. So we just read that. Let's go Revelation 16. Let's see what that says. Chapter 16. Okay. Now, let's start at verse 15, because this is one of those things I wanted to look at when we're talking about suddenly. Okay? Go ahead. 15 says what?
Behold, I come as a thief.
There it is. That's your suddenly, unexpected. That's the language that we're talking about. Not quickly, not coming in, quickly, but not coming in the next 2 years, next 15 minutes. Not like that. Come as a thief, suddenly. Okay, go ahead. 15.
Blessed is he that watcheth,
Mm-hmm.
keepeth his
Garments, meaning you're ready. Blessed is he that is ready. Go ahead.
Lest he walk naked,
Uh-huh.
and they see his shame.
Yeah, they see that you're not ready. Those who are ready are going to see that you're not ready. Understand? Go ahead. 16.
And he gathered them together into a place called, in the Hebrew tongue,
Mm-hmm.
Armageddon.
Yep.
And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air.
Mm-hmm.
And there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
from the throne, saying, It is done.
Go ahead.
And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings. And there was a great earthquake,
Mm-hmm.
such as was not since men were upon the earth.
Go ahead.
So mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts,
Mm-hmm.
and the cities of the nations fell.
Mm-hmm.
And the great Babylon came in remembrance before God,
Mm-hmm.
to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. 20.
And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found.
Okay, so wait. Okay, so when in the first century, okay, or really any other century, okay, where there was an earthquake that not only split Jerusalem in 3 parts, but caused the cities of the nations to fall. When did that happen? It's a damnable heresy, brothers and sisters. It's a damnable heresy. It's dangerous to believe that kind of stuff. It never happened, okay? The point is it never happened, okay? Let's look at something else, okay? The book of Revelation also prophesies about an event that will wipe out 25% of the earth's population. Go to Revelation 6. Okay, Revelation 6. And let's pick it up at verse 1 real quick. 1, and we'll read up to verse 8. Go ahead.
And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder,
Mm-hmm.
one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow,
Mm-hmm.
and a crown and a crown was given unto him,
Mm-hmm.
and he went forth conquering,
Mm-hmm.
and to conquer.
Okay, so that's a lot of war that was happening. We see that since 70 A.D. Go ahead.
And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come
Mm-hmm.
and see.
Go ahead.
And there went out another horse that was red, and the power was given to him
Mm-hmm.
that sat thereon to take place from the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and that they should kill one another.
Mm-hmm.
And there was given unto him a great sword.
Mhm.
And when he had opened the third seal,
Mm-hmm.
I heard the third beast say, Come
Mhm.
and see. And I behold, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts saying,
Mm-hmm.
A measure of wheat for a penny,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 measures of barley for a penny.
Mm-hmm.
And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say,
Mm-hmm.
Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse,
Mm-hmm.
and his name that sat on him was Death,
Mm-hmm.
and hell followed with him. and power was given unto them over the part of the earth,
So 1/4, fourth part of the earth to do what?
to kill with sword,
Mm-hmm.
and the hunger, and with death,
Mm-hmm.
and with the beasts of the earth.
Okay, so 1/4 of the earth's population is supposed to be killed, according to them, in 70 AD. Of the earth, not just Jerusalem. Came up a little short in 70 AD, didn't it? Okay, came up a little short in 70 AD. Let's move on to one more spot because we're dealing with this whole Revelation thing. It's so much ground to cover. We can't possibly cover it all. Okay, a lot to cover. So let's go ahead and look at Revelation 9. Go to chapter 9. Go to chapter 9. Okay. And start at verse, I want to get 18, but let's start at 15 real quick. Go ahead.
And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men.
Again, a third part of men gone. A lot of people dying. A lot of people. You know what? I just want to make it ridiculous so someone cannot come to you and take away and obliterate your faith. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm giving you all these scriptures here, because you have to fit in your mind. Okay? You have to pick up those scissors and try to cut the puzzle piece to make it fit. You have to say, man, you know what? Gosh, I really got to believe a lot of different things to fit preterism in my head. It just doesn't. I don't want it to make sense. It shouldn't, because it doesn't make sense. And if I don't understand, or if I can't see it, then, it's spiritual. I don't have to do that. You see, brothers and sisters, I want to make it ridiculous. That's what I want. Because I want to strengthen your faith. That's what I want to do, because someone's going to come to you and they're going to be eloquent in speech. And it's going to seem logical. It's going to make sense. He said smooth, swelling words. That we will be deceived by seducing spirits, because it means it's going to sound good. They're going to have reason and logic. And he will say, hey, all we have to do is use exegetical hermeneutics. We have to use exegetical renderings of the scripture. This is how we look at eschatology. And it's going to sound good. Well, they're well spoken. It sounds good. They're well studied. They've been doing this for years. There's no second coming, because he already came. There's no kingdom coming down, because it's already here. All things have been fulfilled, because I don't want Messiah to be a liar. He said all these things are coming quickly and they're going to be soon. And when you see these things in this generation and this age and all that, I don't want to make him a liar. So it all happened in 70 AD. You guys are making him a liar with all this futuristic talk. You guys are doing that. It's going to make it sound good. That's how you get most people. You got to make it sound good, plausible, feasible. It has to make sense. It has to tickle our ears. This is why we're doing it like that. Where did we stop? 16?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them.
200 million people. Go ahead.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and the
Jacinth?
end of the jacinth and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire of smoke and brimstone.
What else? What happened in 18?
By these three was the third part of the men killed by the fire, and by the smoke, and by the brimstone, which is issued out of their mouths.
Interesting. Now go one more place and we're going to move on. Revelation 11. Go to chapter 11 for me real quick. Chapter 11. Pick it up at verse 5.
And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth,
We're talking about the two witnesses right here. Go ahead.
and devoureth their enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And if any man will hurt them, he must in his manner be killed.
Mm-hmm.
These have power to shut heaven,
Mm-hmm.
that it rain not in the days of their prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
and have power over waters to turn them into blood,
Mm-hmm.
and to smite the earth with all
Plagues.
Okay, as often as they will.
Okay, so they can smite the earth with plagues as often. When did this happen? I know. It's symbolic, it's apocalyptic language. But I just want to show you how you have to dismiss things. That you have to actually dismiss a lot of scriptures to hold to that view. Do you understand? You have to dismiss a lot of stuff. You have to no, that's... I encourage you to do your due diligence. Look at it. I understand Revelation is full of apocalyptic language. I understand that. I do. But study it. Study it, okay? It's in that form, written in that form, because it's for his children. Okay? It's for those who have an ear, let them hear. Those who have the ruach. It has a spirit that will lead you into all truth, that will give you understanding. That's why it's written that way, because it's not for everybody. It is not for the enemies of God. It's for the children of God to understand. Okay? So yes, you do use exegesis and hermeneutics. Yes, you do. You do the context. Yes, you do. Yes, you go to the old to understand symbolism. I'm not saying not to do that. I'm saying you must do that and not just accept what someone says and roll with it. Let us continue. See, a couple things. We're kind of getting into things that have yet to be fulfilled. Obviously, the preterists believe that it's all been fulfilled, okay? But I submit to you that if something is literal on the front end, it has to be literal on the back end, okay? So go with me to Deuteronomy real quick, because we're moving on from Revelation. Let's go to Deuteronomy 4. Okay, Deuteronomy 4. Let's get this going so we can wrap this part up. This is the last little nugget I want to give you guys. I want you guys to kind of hold fast to this as well, because everything they remember, their defense a lot is going to be time statements and literal versus symbolic or figurative, right? So we got to deal with it, okay? So Deuteronomy 4, and pick it up at verse 23. Deuteronomy 4 and 23. So we can round out the rest of these scriptures. Go ahead, brother.
Take heed unto yourselves, lest ye forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make you a graven image, or the likeness of anything, which the Lord thy God hath forbidden.
Go ahead.
For the Lord thy God is a consuming fire, even a jealous God.
Which means he don't want you serving another God. Go ahead.
When thou shalt beget children and children's children, and ye shall have remained long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image, or the likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord thy God, to provoke
him to anger. 26.
To anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that ye shall soon utterly perish from off the land where unto ye go over Jordan and possesses it. Ye shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall utterly be destroyed.
What else?
And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left, few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you.
Question 27. And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you. Did that literally happen, yes or no? Yes, that literally happened. Continue. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28, and we're just going to jump around a little bit. Go to Deuteronomy 28. We're not going to read all that. We're just going to jump a few places. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, and I want you to pick it up at verse 25. Verse 25.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten
before
before thine enemies. Thou shalt go go out one way against them, and flee 7 days before them,
Mm-hmm.
and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Okay, question. Was Israel removed into all the kingdoms of the earth? Yes or no? Literally. Go to verse 37. Go ahead.
And thou shalt become an
Mhm.
astonishment,
Mhm.
a proverb,
Mm-hmm.
and a byword
Mm-hmm.
among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
Go ahead and skip down to verse 64. He said, when you get to the other country where I scatter you, you're going to become an astonishment, a proverb, a byword, all the little funny little, and I don't really mean funny, but all the funny little sayings about, being Israel, you got N-word, you got a whole lot of little bywords and proverbs that you're known by. A lot of them. Too ugly to even say on camera. But you know what they are. And all you older Israelites out there, you tell the young ones what they were. All the little rhyme, all the little theme songs, all those things that Israel was called. He said all those things were going to happen, and yet it literally happened, and it's still happening today. Drop down to verse 64. Let's see what else.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people,
Mm-hmm.
from one end of earth even unto the other.
What else?
And there thou shalt serve other gods,
Mm-hmm.
which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Drop down to verse 68. 68.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, and again with ships.
Okay, so he's going to ship Israel off into ships, and Egypt means bondage and captivity. That's what it means, okay? Because where they were, you didn't need a ship to get to Egypt. Okay, go ahead.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee,
Mm-hmm.
thou shalt see it no more again,
Mm-hmm.
and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, and bondmen and bondwomen,
Mm-hmm.
and no man shall buy you.
All I'm going to say is this, regardless of what you think of Israel or whatever, all these crazy African Americans think they're Israel or whatever. Let me just ask you this: were there people shipped out throughout the whole world that you can read in history and sold as slaves? Yes or no? That happened, but that was literal. That literally happened. It wasn't spiritual. Okay, go to Amos 9. Okay, men, women, and children were literally bought and sold as the Bible prophesied it to happen. Literally. Amos 9, verse 8. Go ahead.
Wait, what chapter again?
Amos 9, chapter 9, verse 8. Amos chapter 9, verse 8.
Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon this sinful kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
saying that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob,
Mhm.
saith the Lord.
What else?
For lo, I will command, I will sift the house of Israel among all nations,
Mm-hmm.
like as corn is sifted in a sieve.
Yes.
Yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth.
So he said he's going to sift it. He's going to sift Israel from among the nations. So he's going to pull them out from wherever they are, right? But all these things, hey, supposed to be literal. So let me ask you this. If the scattering is literal, does it not stand to reason that the gathering would be literal? Does that at least stand to reason? Okay. So let's look at the reverse. Go to Isaiah 54. Okay? Isaiah 54. Isaiah 54. Okay, let's take a look at this. Because I don't want someone to come along and just destroy your hope. Isaiah 54, pick it up at verse 7. Go ahead.
For a small moment have I forsaken thee,
Uh-huh.
but the great mercies will I gather thee.
Y'all, did y'all get that? Did you get that? The Lord was upset. He said, for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. He said gather. Now go to Ezekiel 11. Okay, so he was upset for a little while, but he's going to gather. He promised he was going to scatter, and now he's promising that he's going to gather. They both should be literal. Ezekiel 11, go to verse 17 for me.
Therefore say, thus saith the Lord God,
Mm-hmm.
and I will gather you from the people,
Mm-hmm.
and assemble you out of the countries where ye have been scattered,
Uh-huh.
and I will give you the land of Israel.
What? That's pretty literal, right? He literally scattered you. It would mean nothing if the gathering was not literal, right? It would mean nothing. Okay? So we got that. Jeremiah 50. Let me give you a little bit more before we get out of here. Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah 50. Okay, if you're in Jeremiah 50, read verse 4 and 5. Go ahead.
In those days and in that time,
Uh-huh.
saith the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
the children of Israel shall come,
Mm-hmm.
they and the children of Judah
Okay.
together,
Okay.
going and weeping.
Mm-hmm.
They shall go and seek the Lord their God.
What else?
They shall ask the way to Zion, and their faces
Thitherward.
thitherward,
Uh-huh.
saying, Come, and let us let us join ourselves to the Lord
Mm-hmm.
in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten.
Okay, this is what they're hoping for. Okay, this is what they're hoping for, that this perpetual covenant is not forgotten. You know, you're gonna bring us in the land, you're gonna redeem us, and all that stuff. This whole covenant and everything. He doesn't want that to be forgotten. Okay, I'm gonna go one more place. Well, you know what? Let me go to. We were in. I want to make sure I wasn't right there. Let's go to Isaiah 11. Okay. Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11, and I just need one verse. Isaiah 11, and I need one verse, verse 12. Go ahead.
And he shall set up in the ensign for the nations,
Yep.
and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and gather together this disparate of Judah
Mhm.
from the four corners of the earth.
Okay, so that sounds like all over the earth now, doesn't it? All over the earth. This is all I'm saying, okay? Isaiah 11 and 12, he said, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah. They did get dispersed in 70 AD. Dispersed of Judah for the four corners of the earth. Okay? My point is, it was all literal scattering. The gathering has to also be literal. That hasn't happened yet. Regardless of who you think Israel is. Still hadn't happened yet. This is what we're talking about. But it'll just be written off as something spiritual. Well, a lot of people don't feel spiritually together today, now do they? Don't feel like we're just one under one banner and just worshiping the Lord. What happened to going up to Jerusalem year by year? Whatever happened to that? All nations shall flow unto it. Is that happening now? It's a little bit of a problem. Okay? So let's look at this last place, because he's talking about scattering, and he's talking about gathering. So let's look at this one last place in Deuteronomy 30. Okay, one last place in Deuteronomy 30. Then we'll look a little bit at resurrection, and then we'll close out. In Deuteronomy 30, and I just want 3 verses. In Deuteronomy 30, and let's pick it up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 30 and 1.
And it shall come to pass,
Mhm.
when all these things are come upon thee,
Mm-hmm.
the blessing and the curse,
Yep.
which I have set before thee,
Mm-hmm.
and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations,
Yep.
whether the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
So Israel's going to remember this stuff in the nation that they happen to be in. Okay, go ahead.
and shall return unto the Lord thy God.
And they're trying to return to the old past. They're trying to return unto the Lord thy God. Go ahead.
And shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day.
Oh, okay. So everything he commanded that day. Okay, go ahead.
and thou thy children
Mm-hmm.
with all thine heart
Mhm.
and with all thy soul.
What else is going to happen?
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity
So the Lord will turn thy captivity, and what else?
and have compassion upon thee,
And what else?
and will return to gather thee from all the nations,
Mm-hmm.
whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
Okay, so we got it in one sentence. I'm going to return you from all the nations that I have scattered thee. I'm going to gather you from all the nations that I have scattered thee. So it has to be literal. Has to be. Because this issue is two sides of the same coin. That's what this is. It's two sides of the same coin. Okay? So let's move on to the resurrection. See, these are big problems for preterists. These are big problems. Big problems. So go to Daniel 12:2. Let's look at this. And the reason why I'm going to, I said that the scattering of Israel is literal. And I said that the gathering of Israel should be literal. So we're going to look at the resurrection, because they're going to make that spiritual as well. And we're just going to use short little verses, one verse here, one verse there, stuff like that, to make the point, and then we move on. So let me show you real quick. Daniel 12. And let's look at verse 2. We'll start at verse 1. Go ahead. Start at verse 1. Daniel 12:1.
And at that time shall Michael stand up,
Okay.
the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people.
Mm-hmm.
And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation,
Mm-hmm.
even to that same time.
Okay.
And at that time thy people shall be delivered,
Mm-hmm.
every one that shall be found written in the book.
What's going to happen?
And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake,
Mm-hmm.
some of the everlasting life,
Mm-hmm.
and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
Okay, so Daniel understood that there was a resurrection, yes or no? Yes. Okay. Let's look at, look like the rest is in the New Testament. So let's select John 5. Go to John 5. John 5, and let's look at chapter 5, and let's look at verse 28. Okay?
Marvel not at this,
Mm-hmm.
for the hour is coming, in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice,
Really? And do what?
and shall come forth.
Mm-hmm.
They that have done good
Mm-hmm.
unto the resurrection of life,
Mm-hmm.
and they that have done evil
Mhm.
unto the resurrection of damnation.
Okay, so wait a minute. So this sounds like this lines up with Daniel, though, doesn't it? Pretty much says the same thing. It lines up with Daniel. So they believed in a literal resurrection. Okay, a literal resurrection. Okay, let's go to Acts 17. Next book over. Let's go to Acts 17. Pick up one verse. Acts 17. Acts 17, and read verse 31.
Because he hath appointed a day, in the which of he will judge the world in righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
by that man whom he hath ordained,
Mm-hmm.
whereof he hath given assurance unto all men,
Mm-hmm.
in that he hath raised him from the dead.
Yeah, he has raised him from the dead. Okay, so this is Paul teaching to those guys over in Acts, saying that basically there's going to be a resurrection, and he's just saying that, Messiah was raised from the dead. Okay, but how did they respond in 32?
And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead,
Mm-hmm.
some mocked, and others said, We will hear thee again of this matter.
Okay, and then Paul left in verse 33. So we're Acts. Go to you're still in Acts. Go to chapter 24. Okay, Acts chapter 24, and let's look at verse 15. Okay, Acts 24, verse 15. Go ahead.
And have hope toward God,
Mm-hmm.
which they themselves also allow,
Mm-hmm.
that there shall be a resurrection of the dead,
Mm-hmm.
both of the just and unjust.
Okay, so you guys have to ask yourself, okay, is this literal or not? That's really what it comes down to. See, they believed in a literal resurrection of the dead. This is that hope, the hope of eternal life. This is your hope. This is your faith. But brothers and sisters, it's trying to be snatched away from you. They want to snatch this away from you. Let's go to these last couple of places. Revelation 20. We're dancing all around the Bible, but that's all right. We're trying to get some understanding and refute this doctrine of preterism. Revelation 20. We're going to read 2 verses there. Revelation 20, and let's look at 12 and 13. Wait, let's see here. Revelation, 20, chapter 20. Okay. All right, go ahead. Revelation 20, verse 12.
And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God,
Mm-hmm.
and the books were
Opened.
and another book was opened, which is the book of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the dead were judged out of those things
Mm-hmm.
which were written in the books,
Mhm.
according to their works.
Go ahead.
And the sea gave up the dead which were in it,
Mm-hmm.
and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were judged every man according to their works.
Okay, so this is talking about a literal resurrection. Now, I got 2 places I want to go. This last place here, well, second to the last place is Job 14:14. 1 verse. Talking about our hope. And then let's take a look at it.
Job.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter
14. Job chapter 14. Now you have to ask yourself, is Job being spiritual here or is he being literal? Go ahead. 14:14. Job 14:14.
If a man die, shall he live again?
Mm-hmm.
All the days of my appointed time
Mhm.
will I wait
Mm-hmm.
till my change come.
Okay. So if it's anything other than literal, that statement doesn't even make sense. Okay? Who cares if it's a spiritual contemplation or something like this? If a man dies, shall he live again? He said, I'm just going to wait all my appointed time until my change come. What? That resurrected body. That's what we're talking about. Last place we're going to close it out is Ephesians, the book of Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4. I want you to protect your faith in this time. You're going to need your faith in this time. So Ephesians chapter 4, pick it up at verse 13. Go ahead.
Till we all come in the unity.
Unity.
I know.
Till we all come in the unity of the faith.
And of the knowledge of the Son God,
Mhm.
and the Son of God, until a perfect man,
Mhm.
until the measure of this
Stature.
of the fullness of Christ.
Okay, so he said, and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. 14, that we henceforth
be no more children,
Yes.
tossed to and fro, and carried about the every wind of doctrine,
Okay.
by the sleight of men, and cunning craftiness,
Mm-hmm.
whereby they lie in wait to
deceive. Now, I want you to hear that. He said that we henceforth be no more children. We got to grow up. We got to be mature in our faith. Okay? We're not just blindly believing. Okay? We have that evidence of our faith, this hope, these promises. These promises are grandiose, but they're real. They're big and they're real. And these promises are made by Messiah and his Father that are able to fulfill it the way they are describing it. So he said that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about by every wind of doctrine, preterism, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. So 16 centuries later, they had to figure out this preterism thing. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Oh, we have a problem. Let's fix it. Oh, okay, wow. The early church fathers, they didn't believe in everything's been fulfilled. Okay, well, let's just discredit them. Okay, they're wrong. Okay. The dating of the book of Revelation. Oh, well, they're wrong. Oh, well, the physical scattering and gathering. Oh, well, one's spiritual, symbolic. You have to give up so much in order to believe. You have to give up that much in order to believe. He shall rule in Jerusalem. Oh, that's symbolic. You're going to have access to the tree of life, and the gates will be open. Symbolic. Thy kingdom come. That's just symbolic. The kingdom's in your heart. Read 15, so we can get out of here. 15. But speaking the truth in love.
But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ.
That's just what we're talking about, okay? So we got to do this thing together. We need to gird up each other's faith, help each other out, okay? There's a lot of doctrines out there, okay? It's not just preterism. There's a lot of doctrines out there that you got to be watchful for. You got to search the scriptures and prove all things. This has been a presentation of Preterism, Examine and Refuted. I hope you've been edified. Shalom.